Good morning or afternoon to everybody, and welcome to SafetyChain's 2013 FSMA How-To Series, and today's topic, How to Automate a FSMA-Ready Food Safety Plan. My name is Barbara Levin. I'll be your host and one of your presenters today. Also joining me will be Dave Detweiler, our Director of Solutions Consulting, and Dan Bernkoff, our VP of Food Safety and Quality Assurance Applications. Before we begin, let me give you a few housekeeping announcements. We are being hosted for this webinar today by WebEx. Should you require technical assistance at any time during the webinar, you can call their support line directly at 877-509-3239. If you're having trouble with the audio through your speakers, you can switch to the phone number that was provided in your reminder email. We will be sending by close of business on Monday an email that will allow you to download the slides and the recording. We will be taking your questions at the end of the presentations today. Also, for your privacy, you can only see the names of the hosts and presenters as well as your own names. You cannot see the names of the other attendees. Now, last week, or actually a couple of weeks ago, I think it's on May 31st, during our FSMA Friday, we were joined by Levitt Partners, who gave a great presentation and answered your questions on how to create a FSMA-ready food safety plan. Today, we're going to tell you how food safety chain management solutions can help you automate that plan. I'll be going through the key components of a plan and how automation can help. Dave is then going to give you a high-level demonstration of the solution itself, and then during the Q&A, we're going to bring Dan on, who can answer your FSMA questions, and Dave and I will be there to answer your product questions. And we should be wrapping up within 30 to 45 minutes today. And with that, let's move on to the presentation. Jennifer McIntyre and Melanie Newman from our partners, Levitt Partners, went through the key components of a FSMA-ready food safety plan on May 31st. These included the fact that a FSMA-ready food safety plan has to be written, and it can't be a one-size-fits-all. You need to have a specific plan for every facility and for every product. Also, you have to assess the risks that are reasonably likely to occur and create preventive controls for those risks. You then need to frequently monitor, verify, and validate that your controls and other safety measures are working. You have to document your corrective actions. As our friends at Levitt like to say, if it isn't documented for FSMA, you might as well not have done it. And then anytime there is a safety event or a breach, you have to reanalyze and go back and see what additional preventive controls or procedures might need to be put in place. So what we're going to do is take each one of these 6 points and talk about how food safety chain management can help you automate these components. Before we do that, we're going to just take a very brief big picture look at how food safety chain management automation works. Dave is going to show you a live product demonstration, but in order to frame the next couple of slides, we wanted to give you sort of a general picture. First, you can enter and create all of your regulatory and non-regulatory requirements within the solution. These can include your GFSI plans, your USDA and FDA requirements. You can also set up all of your company-specific programs and procedures, your HACCP and preventive control plans, your third-party audit requirements, your vendor supplier approval programs, your safety and quality product specifications, as well as your maintenance schedules, and all of the related standard operating procedures, prerequisite programs, forms, corrective and preventative actions, and your records. All of these go into the solution where you'll see how we manage documents, plans, and specifications through automatic task scheduling, workflow, data collection, real-time analysis of the data to specifications, and real-time alerts when a non-compliant result is detected. All of this is then time and date stamped and goes into a central repository regardless of the number of plants or products that you have, Everything is then centralized and searchable for easy access for trending, analytics, and reporting. What this does is let you look at your safety data in real time. It allows you to be ready on demand for audits, and it allows you to very easily manage customer and supplier compliance. So with that high-level overview, let's look then at the 6 components of a FSMA-Ready food safety plan and how safety chain management automation can help. So the first one that we mentioned was that you have to have a written plan that is specific by facility and product. So with food safety chain management, you can set up an unlimited number of specifications for safety and quality attributes, an unlimited number of prerequisite programs, as well as preventive controls. These can be identified by product and plant, and they can be grouped by products if that makes sense. There's an automatic task scheduler with auto alerts. So all of these procedures and programs and requirements get done. If you've got a control that says that you've got to calibrate metal detectors at a certain time every day, an alert can go out to make sure that that's done, and another alert can go out if it hasn't been done. There's also comprehensive supplier compliance, which in FSMA can be considered a preventive control, and it's also, of course, necessary for your internal vendor approval programs as well as your audits. Because all of your safety and quality test results, your COAs from suppliers, your supplier documentation is accessible from a central repository. You're able to do real-time analysis. You're able to look at trends, and you also have those alerts that can then help you identify where you have risks. When you create the preventative controls for those risks, all those PRPs, such as sanitation, allergen control, preventative maintenance, training, and there's a large list of preventive controls, can also then be set up in the system, and they will then benefit from that same auto scheduling for the tasks and real-time assessment and alerts to make sure that they're being done. Oh, well, I just don't know what happened there. I'm going to have to come back here pretty quickly. Sorry about that, folks. Now, you can frequently monitor, verify, and validate. You can capture data, safety data, and quality data as early as possible, even from the field using mobile devices, let's say pre-harvest. All of the information from suppliers, labs, and equipment comes into the system. You can even have temperature probes, in trucks that can continuously send information. Again, that task scheduler makes sure that everything is being done that's supposed to be done. When all of this information is coming in, it's being analyzed in real time against specifications. When a deficiency is detected or an omission, if a standard operating procedure or preventive control hasn't been completed, real-time alerts to the key stakeholders go out. So one, this helps you prevent safety breaches and safety events in the first place. And then very important, all of that information is time and date stamped with an unalterable stamp and then goes into that central repository for reporting and trending and analysis. Because you're getting these alerts, you're being ensured that you can take a corrective or preventive action at the earliest point possible, even with before and after digital photos. And again, I can't say it enough because everything is time date stamped and everything is in that central repository. You have proof of your corrective actions, so you can respond on demand to an inquiry from the FDA, from a customer, or a third party, and also respond to, again, audits and inspections. With this solution, you have upstream and downstream and internal visibility. And because you've got all of those results that came in and you've got documented proof that operating procedures and preventive controls took place, you've got before and after corrective and preventive actions, you have very, very powerful traceability and the ability to do root cause analysis if you've got to go back and reanalyze your controls if there is a safety breach. Additionally, all of this information provides you with powerful capabilities for benchmarking, for supplier scorecards, for continuous improvement, and of course, to help you improve the cost of goods made. With that overview, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dave, to show us what it looks like.
Thanks, Barbara. No small task here on a Friday afternoon on the East Coast. Now you gave us a lot of stuff to show. So I appreciate everyone joining, and I think that I can share. You should be seeing my screen now, hopefully. Barbara, if you could just
right
confirm.
now, we have a little bit of delay. Here we go. You're all set, Dave.
Perfect. So Barbara talked about a lot of areas that our system can assist in, and my intent here is to spend the next 15 minutes or so giving you a high-level overview of some of those things that you heard Barbara talk about and maybe see them in action. So I'm going to do that in two ways. I'm going to show you from a live demonstration site, which you're seeing here right now, some of the functionality within the software solution. So the task scheduler, the ability for a system to verify data. So I'll show you a couple examples of that. I'll show you documentation, right, management of that documentation, whether that's based on a location or a product or a supplier, for example. We'll hit on those areas, and we'll wrap it up with a little bit of the reporting that Barbara had mentioned as well. The idea of SafetyChain, as Barbara mentioned, is that it can provide the kind of whole grasp of your programs. And one of the key elements that Barbara had mentioned was this ability, this task manager, this task scheduler. All of you on the phone, I'm sure, get caught up in some of the urgency, the day-to-day urgency. And what our system has allowed our customers to do is actually remove themselves, or at least be reminded of those important things that need to happen, right, those day-to-day items. So an example you're seeing here in the system, I have a sanitation program. And as part of that sanitation program, I want to set a specific schedule. So what our system allows you to do is create these programs. I'm going to show you some more detail about these programs, but one of the areas within the programs that you might want to set are an actual schedule. And what this allows our system to do then is notify based on upcoming events, right, the task scheduling component of it, and also then notify on omission. So if you're expecting something to occur, right, you have preventative controls in place or certain monitoring activities in place, and you're expecting them to occur every 2 hours or every 4 hours or every 8 hours. If you have certain PRPs, for example, that happen weekly or daily or monthly, the idea is that our system can be set up with this scheduler. So it ties the program to the schedule, can generate alerts for reminders and also omissions. One of the areas you're not seeing here, we also have a randomizer for those of you with swabbing programs. So you can actually put in all of your equipment into the system that's part of the swabbing program, and our system will randomly select the areas to swab and, again, generate out a notice or an alert. So at a baseline, at a foundation of a program, most of you are sitting there saying, okay, I have these programs that maybe you're using Outlook today to generate reminders, making sure it's done, keeping tabs of things on a spreadsheet as they go through it. Our system will actually generate and alert off those reminders. But that's not the only part of your program, right? Part of your program is that ability to also then capture data in regard to that program and also verify that that data is proper or appropriate with your program, right? So the idea, if I take the system a step further and say, hey, you have a task scheduler, you can attach programs to it. The idea is that you also have these programs where you say, hey, you know what, I have an environmental temperature monitoring program, right? It's now set up every 2 hours or whatever it might be, but it also has attributes associated with it, right? So these attributes can live and be housed and stored in our system. So as I click down here, I'm just going to show you the attributes associated with this environmental temperature program, right? So I have specific attributes, in this case, associated to specific coolers, right? I have a blast cooler, the south cooler, and I have different maximum or minimum limits. This allows our system to actually verify the data as it comes in, generate automatic corrective actions. So now you have a system in place with a baseline that says, hey, I know when things are supposed to happen and can remind you or alert you against it. I also understand the certain specifications of the data that you're to receive and can alert against that as well. So if something has gone over a maximum limit, when we talk about temperatures, especially if you have a preventative control, right, or a critical control point, maybe it doesn't make sense to have a notification generated at that specific control point, right? Maybe it makes sense to have a notification generated 3, 4 degrees cooler or 2 degrees cooler, so you never get into that corrective action scenario, right? You never get into that NCR issue because you can be alerted and say, hey, there's an issue over here. And that's where we start to talk about that preventative nature of the system. It's not just data, though, right? As we all know, you're going to have different, yes, no checklists, pass, fail checklists. You might be actually just capturing initials today of what people are actually doing, that yes, it was completed, right? Our system can take those attributes as well, right? Maybe it's just the ATP tests that are being done, right? The ability to pull swabs, or that ability to go through and say, yes, I have done this, no, I haven't done it, or it is complete, it isn't complete. That type of information can also be housed and stored in our system. So it doesn't just have to be data. And what this allows for, again, is that we're tracking those certain attributes, making sure that things have occurred as you expect them to occur within your program, right? So now you have a baseline of 2 components. One is I got timing. Things have to happen every 2 hours, 4 hours, daily, weekly, monthly. I got attributes because things have to be verified against those attributes. Now you have a system in place that says, I have that baseline information. Well, now we need to get the data and the information into the system. How does that occur? It occurs in many different fashions, right? One way that everyone loves to talk about, since I use temperature as an example, is full, complete automation, right? Generating data to our system from a refrigerator unit, a scale, a caliper, right? Happens often. Another very common way, and to show you an example that hopefully some of you are smiling here on Friday, you might have a form that looks like this today, right? This is a sample form from one of our customers. They came to us and said, hey, I'm capturing temperatures, facility temperatures that I have as one of my preventative controls, every 3 hours. The idea is we took this form, right, and we put it into our application, just like you saw on the demo site, right? I took it, we took the information and said, hey, you're capturing a temperature here from the production room with a maximum limit of 44.6. We embedded that data into our system. We also used the task scheduler, right? Now, what that allows people to do is either manually enter data into our system, or maybe more excitedly, walk around with a tablet, a smartphone, a device, and actually capture data. So you actually talk about real-life automation when you can do things with temperature, but then you're also going to have examples where a person needs to visually go through and observe something. Taking that pen and paper out of their hand and giving them a device allows you not only to eliminate additional clerical work for data gathering and data analysis and reporting, but it'll also allow you to do some fun things. For example, on this, on the device itself, on the app, if you enter in something, there can be logic built behind it, right? Well, which we'll talk about in the sanitation section here. The idea that if I make an entry, maybe a corrective action opens up automatically on the screen that I complete, right? That I enter in information. So, whole bunch of feature functionality here. Task scheduler, right? We talked about timing, talk about having verification data in the system, specifications, attributes in the system, that ability then to capture data from automation, manual entry into a system, tablets, smartphones, even equipment integration, right? So what happens? The system now receives information. So we go back here. I'm looking for data, right? Remember, our system's now looking for data to come in. It comes in via a tablet entry. It generates a notice, right? Storage room came in at 46 degrees. That's high, right? Hot, right? I can generate direction to these individuals, starts that communication process. Again, we could even force a direct corrective action right there on the tablet if that's necessary, right? So now I'm starting that loop, right? Hey, I need something done now. I need a person to review this. Again, as we mentioned and as Barbara mentioned, the ability to actually capture observation data, right? You can capture photographs that can be associated from a tablet or a smartphone or a digital camera, right, sitting in your lab. So now the idea is you have that full documentation as well. And then that final ability to workflow corrective action. What is the corrective action? You have drop-downs, radio buttons, comment fields, right? So you start to put that whole process together, and now you have a whole bunch of data, right, which we're going to end on with from a reporting standpoint. But now you have a whole bunch of data that you want to start to trend most common corrective actions, start to trend temperature, right, start to trend different areas, right? Another example, master sanitation form. We were in here earlier looking at a task scheduler for master sanitation. Again, maybe it's pre-op inspection that you're going through. You take that information, you put it into the task scheduler as we just saw in the demo site. We can push it out to a tablet, right, and we can do it over and over and over again within the system. So the idea is that we can not only capture data, we can verify data, we can help to automate that process, but now you also have this controlling mechanism, this task scheduler that says, hey, are you doing the items or the things that you're expected to do as part of this program? right? And as Barbara mentioned earlier, a big portion of this is anytime anyone touches the system, is that ability for you to see where they went, when they touched it, date, unalterable date and timestamps. We also capture electronic signatures as part of the application. One of the other areas that Barbara had touched on, right, is it's not just data, and we talk a lot in two areas here at SafetyChain. Data, which we just talked a lot about, capturing temperatures, capturing pass-fails for a sanitation schedule, but you also need documentation, right? That's part of this program. I need to document this. Not only do I need to document it, but I also need to review that documentation on a regularly scheduled basis and sign off on that or add any comments to it. So the system has been set up with a hierarchy in it, right? You might have documentation based on products or locations or even regions, right? I know, looking from some of the folks on the phone, that you have supplier documentation, right? The idea that you can have a repository for all your supplier documents, product documents, location, facility-specific documentation, right? And the idea is that we can not only be a repository for it, our system will also keep track and monitor if there are review or revision requirements, meaning that annually maybe you need to review a certain standard operating procedure. And a lot of times on suppliers, right, we're generating out notices based on the 15 or 20 documents that you require, right? You require their allergen certificate, their manufacturer's declaration. From a standpoint of preventative controls in a facility, we can do the same thing. And what our system will do is generate reminders. In this case, on the screen you're looking at, it generates a reminder to a supplier saying, hey, by the way, your allergen certificate is coming up on being due. We can do the same thing for internal documents like those preventative control documents. Your PRP documents can be housed in our system based on product, location. It's a hierarchy that you can create as well, right? So it's a very flexible repository of both data and documents. So now what happens with all this information and kind of to start to pull this back together? So now you have a system with a task scheduler and a system that can capture and verify information. It can capture that data from multiple different avenues, whether it's true integration, tablets, smartphones. Well, now you have all this information. It would be nice to be able to chart it and trend it, right, and report off of it and pull it together and analyze it, right? And the idea is that you can use any of the data in the system can be reported against. Maybe it's reported against in a traditional sense of a dashboard, right? What most of you are probably familiar with when a person says, hey, do you have a dashboard, right? Sure, we have a dashboard. This dashboard can track any of the data that comes into our system, whether that be, moisture, right, or whether that, because it's a quality attribute or a food safety attribute, or whether that be pH levels, or whether that be actually storage temperature levels, right, as well as, ATP tests and so forth, right? The idea is that any of this information can be trended real time, and as the information hits our system, these dashboards are updated. You can rerun these dashboards for different periods of time. So if someone comes in and you want to say, hey, how are we doing on our continual improvement initiatives? Have we seen a decline or a decrease in these levels? And you can rerun this for prior years of data, previous months of data, previous different attributes, and so forth, right? And you can do this with, again, any information. Maybe it's supplier information in the product that they're providing you and the attributes you're tracking in that area. So starting that ability to start to regurgitate data, pull data back, right? Create information with upper and lower control level limits, right? And that ability to see standard deviation and averages and so forth. We can do calculations within the system as well, right? The idea is you can start this type of control charting as well. You also might want to look at it just simply as data, right? And we provide full access to information in what we call an analytic cube, the ability for you to come in here and slice and dice information and export it out to Excel or Word documents and generate reports is obviously capable as well. So now you want to start seeing, average results or compliance percentages, for example, by products across your product lines. Now you have that data and you can start to slice and dice it, right? It's out of a piece of paper now. It's actually living in a repository where you can not only report off of data compliance, for example, but maybe you want to report off of document compliance as well, right? Which you can do from the system, whether that's internal documentation, whether that's supplier-specific documentation. You have the ability and the wherewithal to start running these reports very simply. So here's an example just of a supplier compliance document report. Do the same thing for internal documentation, right? What reports are coming up on revision criteria? When are those reports, have they been revised, right? The idea that it's not only a repository for these documents, but it can be a reporting tool as well, right? There are my suppliers on the left side of the screen and the documents I require of those suppliers. The ability, again, for our system to generate out alerts and notices based on those, this data and expiration dates as well. And then lastly, just wrapping it back up before I give it back over to Barbara is, now you have this one repository. I showed you dashboards, showed you reports. Maybe you want to pull this all together into a home page, and that's really where SafetyChain starts to excel. So you think that you have this documentation living in the system, you have this data living in the system, you have the ability of a system to generate out alerts and notifications, but you now can also have a home page. So any of you sitting here can have your own home page where it shows you specific, I don't know, maybe it's program compliance, right, which you're seeing here. I can drop and drag any report within the system onto my home page, and it allows me to start to get access to that information. Maybe I want to see compliance by inspections and so forth, right? Or, you know, different gauges and information. Again, very configurable down to the end user level. So any of you sitting on there used to your Google homepage or your Yahoo homepage, well, SafetyChain is bringing it to food safety and quality, right? And the idea is that you can move these around. You can see upcoming tasks that are being scheduled back to those, you know, preventative controls that you might have in place. Maybe it's recent compliance alerts that you should focus on, and that ability to drill directly down into that information, see the data very quickly, and possibly even see, if it's applicable, right, the observation associated with it. So bringing that all together, and these are raisins for anybody on this phone, so it might not come across. But anyway, the idea is that we can pull all of this data and information together. We can utilize a task scheduler to promote preventative controls and making sure things occur when you want them to occur. We can also be a document repository, as we talked about. I showed you an example from a supplier standpoint. It can be done with your, you know, any of your documentation can be housed and stored in the system as well and generate reminders on revisions and reviews. So with that, Barbara, I know that was quick, but I said I would keep it to about 15 minutes, so I'm going to kick it back over to you. I think you have a couple slides, and we'll answer a couple questions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. What we're going to do now is take you out of full screen. All of you now should be able to see in the lower right-hand side of your screen the Q&A box. You can simply enter your question there and hit send, and I'm going to give you now just a little bit of information about SafetyChain while we give you some time to enter your questions. SafetyChain is the leading food safety chain management solution, and we really help our customers enforce safety and quality at every point along your food supply chain. It's a comprehensive solution with modules for supplier compliance, COA and specification management, reporting and scorecards, safety and quality data management, HACCP and Preventive Controls Program automation, GFSI compliance, as well as customer compliance, finished product testing, and pre-shipment review. We help our customers save time and save money and create operational efficiencies that lead to compliance. There's a lot of ROI based with this system. We help you eliminate manual processes and errors, help prevent withdrawals, rejections, and recalls, as well as respond on demand to regulatory third-party, internal, and customer audits. Ultimately, what this is really doing for everybody is helping you to protect your market value and your brand. You can think of SafetyChain as really the smoke alarm in the cloud to help you proactively prevent problems before they start versus waiting until after a problem already takes place and then reactively having to figure out how that problem started and how to repair the damage. And what we're going to do now is take your questions. I'm going to put this slide up here for anybody that does need to leave here at the bottom of the hour. As we said, this says within 24 hours. Actually, it will be by end of day Monday, and you can request an ROI calculator, a private demo or pricing, as well as download the slides and the recording. Excuse me. We've got some great upcoming events that you can register for at SafetyChain.com. Next week is FSMA Friday, and the group from Levitt Partners will be discussing environmental controls. When we do send you the recording for the email for the slides and recording for this how-to webinar on Monday, we'll also tell you how to register for the how-to webinar on the environmental controls FSMA Friday. Our partner TriVista is going to be doing a webinar on continuous improvement and lean principles for the food and beverage industry. We've got our SafetyChain demo day coming up. And if you're going to be at IAFP coming up next month, please stop by and visit us at booth 415. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the questions. And Dan, I hope that you're off mute now. I'm bringing in Dan Bernkoff, our VP of Food Safety and Quality Assurance Applications. Dan, I'm going to throw this one to you. Galen is asking, how frequently do you need to validate controls for a specific risk?
Hi, Barbara. I think Dan might have been off for a second, so let's go ahead and take another question, and then we'll get back to that one.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Let's see. Dave, Gail is asking, does this program allow you to report issues, for example, a foreign material finding, and then put in the corrective action and the follow-up information?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think you're hearing me, Barbara. The answer to the question, absolutely, and I apologize. I'm seeing some of these questions come in. I hope everybody understands that these demonstrations to go through, for example, a full closed-loop corrective action process could take us upwards of a good half hour, 45 minutes alone, right? So the answer to your question is absolutely. We have closed-loop corrective action. We do NCRs from suppliers coming in to something's happened in the facility. Our system can generate a notice or an alert. From that notice or an alert, a person can enter in that corrective action activity, to your point, Gail, of this is what I've done, this is how I've done it. They could take a picture. If they're using a tablet to capture that activity again, they could enter it in from a PC and a machine. So we not only can capture the corrective action was created, also those, as your point is, the description and the definition of what actually occurred, even visual observation within the corrective action if you'd like. And then you obviously have that data to start to trend and see if anything's happened, right? What are the most common corrective actions that you've seen? All of that's available.
Great, thank you. I believe that Dan is back on. I'm going to throw one more question to you, Dave, and then we'll come back to the other question. Jenny is asking, Dave, can we make specific data from the system available to specific customers? In other words, can they access the system to see that data? And I'm laughing because the side comment is perhaps to reduce the number of spot audits.
Yeah, it is. It's a great comment, right? And absolutely, that's what our system was designed to do. It's funny that this came up on a webinar because a lot of times when we bring it up in private, demonstrations, people get a little nervous about that. But the answer to your question is absolutely, and that's what technology was designed to do, right, is that I can give Barbara just a slice of this information that only she can see. So, today, a lot of our customers use the system to do some traditional methods like generating COAs, right? They captured all this information. Now I want to generate a COA, or they use it to support their hold and release program, right, and approvals and so forth. But the idea, and we've actually had some conversations with those regulatory authorities of, hey, can we just provide a very small skinned-down slice to individuals? And the answer is absolutely yes, right? Our system has the technology to do it, the capability to do it, the security to do it. So, yeah, I think that pretty soon, if you wanted to, you could say, hey, Mr. Customer, if you want to see this piece of data, they log out and they have their own customer page, right? They could see maybe some documentation that you want to provide to them and the most recent results of whatever it is based on lot or batch or test or facility. So the answer to your question is yeah, absolutely, and it's it's a great, fun conversation that we've all really started to get around.
That's the whole trend.
If I may add to that, that gets into the whole theme of transparency. And yes, we can, through a secure site, select a very small slice of our system, and transparency is getting to be a bigger subject with suppliers and manufacturers all the time, particularly those that are producing private label. Yes, you can carve off a very small slice of the system and allow your customer to see exactly what's going on, and you can do so in real time if you'd like.
Thank you, Dan, and I'm glad that you're back. I'm going to repeat a question that we had earlier from Galen. Dan, how frequently do you need to validate controls for a specific risk?
Well, that's a great question. Clearly, you need to do it when you're initiating your program and anytime that there's a change to that process. I would think also that periodically that you should do it as well, perhaps annually, to make sure that your controls are in place and working appropriately, and whether there is any new scientific information or validation procedures, those are also opportunities to revalidate your programs.
And let's see, another question for you, Dan. Are preventive controls just a HACCP with some different terminology? And if not, what are some of the key differences?
Well, I would tell you that HACCP, USDA style, has very specific minimum requirements. I don't see that in preventive controls. I think all things have to be listed. All things have to be part of your official program and cannot be in-house programs per se. In addition, preventive controls include the hazard, radiological hazards, which is new and is different from the USDA requirements. So I think that those that are familiar with USDA mandated HACCP, preventive controls are going to be very familiar to you with some differences.
Okay, great, thank you. Dave, Joanna's asking, does the solution allow for collaborative product specification development, either customer-led or supplier-led? Can it generate, can your spec generate a PAP copy?
So today, the answer to your question is not today in the platform do we have collaboration on specifications and really kind of product lifecycle management baked into it, right? We have components of it. We can track and house those specifications. We can promote specifications out to your customers, your suppliers, whoever it might be. And we can produce documentation, to your point, around the specifications that we have housed in the system. We haven't built out the system to have that kind of collaborative nature around true product kind of life cycle management or specifications generation. As you can imagine, we have some very nice components that lend itself well to that, right? If you think our system could capture customer feedback, some might call it complaints, right? You could have an area that you can securely provide data to differing customers or suppliers or facilities, right? So we have some components of it, but the true answer to the question is our system hasn't been developed as deeply to really truly support, I think, what you're specifically asking for, which is more like a product lifecycle management. It is something that has been placed on our roadmap for later on in 2014, but at this point we haven't seen a huge need for it from our customers, so it's taken a little bit of a backseat to some of the other development we've done.
Great, thank you, Dave. Stephen is asking, Dave, on the product modules that Barbara showed, is it all or nothing, or can we use specific modules? I'm going to go back to that slide so that.
So always Barbara creating problems on these webinars. She creates half the questions, right? The idea is that the slide that Barbara showed, it absolutely is trying to do a good job of determining that we're a modular solution. You don't have to use the entire solution. We have customers who use us for just small pieces of it. We have customers who use us for the whole thing. We have some customers who have come to us early and said, hey, I just want to use these pieces, and now have grown into the whole solution. We have other customers who have different technology vendors who handle a couple other components you're seeing on this slide. So the answer to your question is, it's modular in nature, and it's even broken down further than that. For example, under the production slide, you see GFSI and things like that. You could just use the GFSI component, or and so forth. So you can break it down into very small parts. We're a big fan of helping the areas that need most help in the organization, and that's how the system was developed.
Great. Thank you. Let's see. Rodrigo is asking, how can components of the solution help with the recall process management?
Yeah, so I'll let Dan probably weigh in on this too, but just talk about specific technology real quick. If you think about anything that happens in your process, let's say I showed you two very generic examples, right? Oh, you captured temperature. Oh, you captured, a sanitation schedule. If you think about a product actually going through your facility, coming in from an ingredient standpoint, that ability for us to do things like receiving logs on tablets where people are writing it down today, where you can capture certain areas, that ability to capture observation on that receiving log, and then have a key identifier, right? Batch ID, lot ID, purchase order number some customers use. And the idea is that as that ingredient then works through your process, you may be pulling it out for a food safety check, a QA check, wherever it is, and you can associate that, again, key identifier with any of those checks, whether it's batch, lot, PO, whatever it is. And now because that key identifier has been placed throughout your process on the different checks and things that have been accomplished, you can obviously run a report based on that key identifier, right? And that can go all the way through to if you're doing shipping, you know, and you identify who the customer is that you sent out to a specific lot, you can actually run a report for that specific lot number. And that's really where we've seen kind of the technology baseline to the question of how does it help. But Dan, I'll kick it back over to you because maybe I need to provide a little more FSQA answer than that.
Well, I think you did a real good, real good job of that, Dave. But it really helps facilitate root cause analysis. Again, going back to the identifiers that Dave said can be listed in any form and electronically captured. If that information is fed back to you, whether it's an ingredient supplier lot number, your own SKU, and a lot number, we can do instantly through electronic means, sort that information by those key indicators or that SKU or that identifier, and bring up that information on food safety and quality attributes associated with it instantly by pressing a button or two, and you're right there.
Great, thank you. We're just about at the 45-minute mark. I just noticed that we have some questions that are in the chat as well as the Q&A. We'll try to get to a few of those. For those of you that are leaving, though, thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you found the information valuable. We hope that we'll be seeing you a week from today on FSMA Friday at TGIFF, as we like to say, and online at some of our other upcoming webinars as well. With that, I'm going to get to a couple of additional questions here that were in the chat. Dave, from Jim, can you sort compliance by inspection tables on the home page?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So compliance on the home page, I believe. You asked, can you sort it by compliance with inspection? Is that what you said, Barbara?
Yeah. If you go into the chat field, you can see the question. Can you sort compliance by inspection tables on the home page?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The answer to the question is yes. I see the question now. Yeah, those home pages that I showed are completely configurable, not only what you saw in the boxes, but also the data elements in those boxes. They're basically, just to break it down for everybody, they're reports that are generated in the system. During implementation, we typically generate reports, right, for our customers to run their business. And then you can take any of those reports. If you'd rather see a table listing by compliance of an inspection versus table listing of your micro results coming in from your external lab, which are integrated, you know, it can all be listed out. It can be sorted how you see it fit. You may have seen the filter buttons on there as well, so you can actually control that at an individual level, not just a report level. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And an add-on to that question from Jim as well, you showed a page that said select product or program. Can those actually be separate fields? Select product as one field and select program as another?
Absolutely. Those forms that you saw there, and that's a Jim, I appreciate you for paying attention, by the way. But yeah, absolutely. Product and programs I have matched together here in the demo 10 at 10, but they can be separated. Attributes can be associated with customers and products, suppliers and products, programs and products, products by themselves, facility products, right? You can have different hierarchies around it as well. But yeah, that naming convention or configuration is key, especially if you guys are, you're thinking about putting software in. One of the big things everybody talks about is change. Well, you don't want to go through a big change in an organization. So how do we help eliminate that at SafetyChain? And the idea is that we replicate your verbiage, right? To your point or question, Jim, maybe you don't even call it a program. You call it an activity, right? Or it should be a hierarchy of product and program. Or, the different verbiage and semantics used in an organization is key to putting into the platform. So that way people recognize it, they're familiar with it, and they understand how to use it.
Great, thank you. We have several questions based on whether it's a hosted system or not. I will answer those. Yes, this is a hosted cloud-based system, highly configurable, highly secure, and it's that cloud technology that makes it easy for everybody to work together to get information from suppliers, to make the information that you want available to customers, It also makes it affordable and, again, very scalable to your organization. Let's see. Scott is asking, Dave, can you speak to the capacity of the system to handle traceability and recall one up, one down?
Yeah, I may be able to. Dan may be able to as well. And maybe I should go to Dan first, and we could talk about the technology. Would we go that way first, Dan, when we talk about one up, one down?
Sure. Well, this is very similar to the prior question. Any identifier that is in our system, whether it's an ingredient lot number that you're capturing, or an internal lot number on an ingredient, or an in-process number, identifier, an SKU, anything that's entered into our system is traceable. And that includes, again, from the inbound side, any ingredient information, in the production side, any processing indicators, as well as any outbound indicators, and that's normally an SKU or a lot number. If they are part of the forms that are captured in our system, that we can easily do root cause analysis on those indicators and pull up all the information associated with them.
Thank you. And from Scott as well, Dave, can data be saved in Excel format to integrate with an A&R data, for example, for an audit?
Yeah, absolutely. So any of our information can be exported out to Excel, right? Word documents, PDF documents. We can even push files out of our system. So if it's on a regularly scheduled basis that you would like us to integrate, we integrate very, commonly with other systems. As you can understand, an application like this not only might need to integrate with devices or equipment to receive information, but it also might generate very commonly data back to help, relieve inventory, for example, in an ERP system, right, where we send data back at the end of a hold and release program. The answer to the question is yes, we can do it on batches. We can do it, via web services. We even have some real-time integration techniques that we can utilize.
Thank you. With that, I think we do have to wrap today. I think we got to everybody's questions. We'll check later. Some of them might have been in a private chat. If we didn't get to them today, we'll get to you offline to make sure you get your answers. Dan and Dave, thank you so much for your participation today. A pleasure as always, and have a great